Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Mike's Garage. My name is Mike, and this is my garage. Today, I want to talk to you about my opinion on the most, or I should say, the best fuel-efficient car built of all time. Now, we have electric, hybrids, and we have diesel. This is my 2014 Volkswagen TDI Golf. In Canada, it's called a Golf Wagon. In the US, it is called a Jetta wagon. This is the Wolfsburg edition. With the Wolfsburg edition in 2014, you did get the red color, you do get the Wolfsburg badges, and best of all, this one is a TDI. Now, some have said the Wolfsburg isn't as good as a Highline because you don't get quite all the options of a Highline as you do in the Wolfsburg, but you do get special two-piece alloy wheels, and most importantly, you get the red color in 2014, and you get the Wolfsburg badging on the side. Now, when you're comparing electric to a gas or diesel-powered vehicle, what are the big benefits of electric? I would say the biggest and most important benefit of it is greenhouse gas emissions. Of course, there is zero-emission engine when you consider zero-emission vehicle when you consider the emissions that they put out when you're driving. Now, there's an argument to be said about, what kind of greenhouse gas emissions creating that engine, creating the batteries, getting your electricity creates. Because at the end of the day, no matter what fuel source you use, it's got to come from somewhere. If you plug into a current bush, some states have coal-fired generators, nuclear generators. In Canada, we have hydro, which means you got to dam up rivers and displace wildlife and flood farmland, possibly. So everything comes at a cost. However, oil comes straight out of the ground. I know, right? It's 100% natural. Man didn't create it. But the downside to oil is, of course, it does create pollution. Like so many things does. I mean, cows create pollution. They burp, they fart, and animals poop in the woods. And, things die when they get diseased from whatever it is. So where there's a yin, there's a yang. So, yes, Volkswagen, they're the dirty diesels. But when it comes to burning energy, I believe they are the most fuel efficient of all platforms. And yes, you're asking me, Mike, well, why do you say that when at the end of the day, an electric car, you don't have the black smoke, you don't have the exhaust gases, and eventually our oil's going to run out. Well, that could be true, but is it going to be in 1 trillion years? I don't know. But until we get better ways of farming electricity, I think the TDI is hands down the best vehicle, which is why I own one. I actually used to own two, but one of them, when Dieselgate happened, they just offered me too much money, so I sold it back. Do I regret it? No, but I do regret not being able to buy another one because the TDI gets absolutely great fuel economy. Today's diesel engines, I don't exactly remember what all the stats are, but it's unbelievable. In some countries, and some cities I should say, the air coming out of the engine is cleaner than the air going into it. I know, crazy, right? I believe it's 100 times better than electric. And diesel, you can get it anywhere. You could go to any country right now, basically any city in the world, and fill your car with diesel, or truck with diesel. If you have electric, you can't even get to the next major city possibly. And if everybody had electric, the power grid would crash, at least at its current state. Now, once upon a time, I was looking at buying a used Tesla. A nicely equipped Tesla was about 65,000 Canadian. Well, at that time, you could get a really nice Volkswagen Passat for about 35 to 40,000. So you're still about $20,000 cheaper for a nice Volkswagen TDI. Now, the kicker with electric vehicles is they're not free to run. You still have to plug them in, whether it be at home or you have to go to a charging station, and most charging stations are not free. People would like to think that when you go to the charging station that you don't have to pay for it, but in reality, you do. When I did the math, I figured that over the course of 5 years, the Tesla would only save me about $1,200 in energy use compared to the amount of diesel I would burn. Now, taking that into account, a vehicle that saves $1,200, even if it's over 5 years, is still a savings. The problem is when you factor in the money that you have to borrow, finance, the cost of that, and not to mention
what do you do with it when it's done? A Volkswagen TDI, in 5 years, you can sell it and get a pretty darn good return on your investment, because an old diesel still gets great fuel economy. They're a very high mileage engine. You know, it's nothing to see them get 300,000-400,000 kilometers. And hands down, it's a great starter vehicle for a lot of younger people that are looking to get into the market. Thereby, with an electric vehicle, in 5 years, it could be at a state where you need to replace your battery, or your battery is degraded to the point, it's a rumble strips, but your battery is depleted to the point where your range is nearly cut in half, or you have an issue with your battery, and a battery can cost you as much as a whole nother car, you know, anywhere from $25,000 to $35,000 or more. The one downside to a TDI diesel is heat in the wintertime. The one thing about anything that's fuel efficient is it's converting that fuel into energy. Now, anything that's really fuel efficient may not create the heat, because at the end of the day, you need energy to create heat. And when it gets cold out, they don't get real hot. Winter fronts are a great thing, and I actually find that driving on the highway, the diesel, because it's burning more, it creates heat on the highway better, but around town they tend to cool off. So if you've got a TDI diesel in the wintertime, you have to plug it in so it'll start in the morning, and you have to run a winter front. But other than that, if you do those two things, it's just fine. The one problem with electric vehicles is you need that battery power to create heat, because yes, you can use your electricity to generate, to drive, but you also need to create heat. So now you're using up your battery power to create heat. Whereas with a combustion engine, heat is a byproduct, which is kind of nice when you live in a cold climate. Now, one of the things that happened in Dieselgate is you were offered two choices. You could either you could either sell your car back to Volkswagen for a predetermined amount based on the mileage and trim level, or you could let them upgrade your emission system to meet the current guidelines that they agreed upon, and you will lose some fuel economy. Now, with the Volkswagen Passat we chose to sell it back to Volkswagen because for what they paid for it, it just made sense. The car had 120,000 kilometers. It was 5 years old at the time, and it's one of those things where with the wear and tear that the car had on it, it just made sense to sell it back to Volkswagen. Now on the Golf, it's a 2014, it's a little bit newer. The money that they offered was about the same as what the Passat was, maybe a little bit more, but the reality was there just wasn't enough value to give it back. There was more value in keeping it and letting them do the upgrade. Now we let them do the upgrade to the DPF. I don't know if they added a DPF or just what they added to the emission system. Certainly it does more regens now. But the beauty of what they did is they paid us to do it for the fuel consumption we lost. So they actually paid us about $6,500 to keep our car and update the emissions. Now currently the car is getting about 6.6 liters per 100, 35.5 miles per gallon. And we really didn't lose that much. We lost between a half and 1 liter per 100. Before, we usually averaged around 6 liters per 100. Sometimes we'd get in the fives, the high fives. But when you figure out the life of the car and the $6,000, it made sense to take the change, keep the car, and enjoy great fuel economy. Not as good as it could have been, but it's still pretty dang good.
Yeah, the great thing about a diesel, you can fuel up your local Costco.
Yeah, we got one.
$71, 51 liters.
So I put in 51 liters of gas. I'm not sure how many gallons that is. And it's telling me I have a range of 475 miles because I did switch it to miles to make it easier. Well, with a car like this, to have a range of 475 miles on $51, or pardon me, it was $75 worth of fuel, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And the kicker is, we can drive from here to the coast. Probably the only thing we'd have to stop for is bathroom breaks, because the car won't need to stop. Yes, can I get a extra large 1 cream, please? Nope, that's it. Thank you. Thank you. You too. Now, one of the other things about this Volkswagen that I like are all the convenience features. You know, the cup holders are well placed. There is 2 of them. All your little convenience features on your dash with your range. You can control your lights. The signature Volkswagen key option where you put your key in the door, hold it, and it rolls down all your windows. And those are also available on the fob. Just those little nice German touches that a lot of other vehicles never used to have. It has the panoramic, it has the panoramic sunroof with the sunshade. Now, I usually have the sunshade closed because one of the downsides to having sunroofs in the winter, and actually it could happen anywhere really, is taking a rock or for whatever reason having your sunroof break. Did have that happen to me on my Volkswagen Passat. Got hit with a rock, and whatever reason it hit just the right way that the roof shattered. Now, I did have my sunshade closed, so I didn't get showered in glass, but let's just say that was a disappointing day. Performance-wise, the Golf, it gets up and goes. You know, it doesn't have a lot of horsepower, but it's a very torquey little engine. And with that torque, it pulls you along just fine. When we had our Volkswagen Passat, we took the family, now there's 5 of us, 3 kids, me and the wife, to Disneyland, and all 5 of us in the car doing 120 kilometers an hour, you know, 75 miles an hour down I-5 to California. We got great fuel economy. On that trip, we were 5.5 liters per 100. Now, the only downside to the diesel is if you pull out to pass someone, it doesn't have quite the horsepower to just get up and go. But with the torque of this engine, you really do have to be careful that you don't spin your tires from every stoplight, because if you step on it, it's going to go. It's the little things, the fit and finish, that really make the Volkswagen feel like a luxury car. And in fact, it kind of is a luxury car, in my opinion. At least it used to be. Now, I know comfort and convenience, fit and finish, doesn't really have anything to do with fuel efficiency. But at the end of the day, it has something to do with the simple fact that you don't have to have a small, compact car that you don't like driving or that has terrible fit and finish to be fuel efficient. One thing to keep in mind with your Volkswagen TDI is it's not cheap to fix. If you say at the fuel pump accidentally put gas in instead of diesel, it would be expensive. Probably in the tune of $6,000 to $9,000 to fix it. So that, I guess I would say, would be one of the negatives to the Volkswagen TDI, is they do not like the wrong fuel. But it's really not that difficult to make sure you put the right fuel in. If it takes diesel, take diesel. Read the cap, it's diesel. But overall, this is my 2014 Volkswagen Golf. I absolutely love this car. It's comfortable, it's fuel efficient, and it holds a family of 5 and 2 big dogs if needed. It has a roof rack, it's red, it's a Wolfsburg. What more can you say? Could use better headlights, could have a little better infotainment system, but you know what? Like everything, it comes with time. Electric cars, yes, they are the way of the future. Yes, the performance of electric cars is fantastic with that instant torque, but you can't plug in everywhere, and your electricity has to come from somewhere, and you still have to pay for electricity. And as time goes on, our electricity costs are going up, but you know what? Our fuel costs are going up too. So that's why efficient vehicles make the most sense. And at the end of the day, you don't have to have every vehicle efficient. Lord knows I know, because it's always nice to have a fun big V8 that burns a bit of fuel. But at the end of the day, it's all about what you can keep in your pocket. But yes, electric vehicles, they might be the future. They might be the best for the performance cars of the future. But at the end of the day, it's great to have a fuel efficient commuter car, a daily driver that gets great fuel economy, saves you money. Because yes, at the end of the day, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. So if you want to have, say, a Z06 Corvette with a flat plane crank that produces 800 horsepower because you twin turboed it, get a commuter car that burns less fuel so that you can save money to spend on your Z06.
But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. This is Mike's Garage.